Lil Jeff, real name Jeffrey Lamar Harris, was born on the 14th of July 2002, getting named after his father, who shares the exact same name. Jeff's family has seemingly mostly lived around the same area, the east side of Chicago.
Bloodhound Lil Jeff story today. Can you start by telling us where you from?
Chicago, you know, east side of Chicago. East side of Chicago.
East side.
Yeah.
However, this east side is not to be confused with the official east side, which is one of the 77 community areas of Chicago located in the far south side of the city. The unofficial east side, on the other hand, which is where Lil Jeff grew up, is mainly part of the Chicago folklore, and thus its exact borders are often heavily debated by locals, with many even arguing that everything in the south side, from State Street all the way to Lake Michigan, actually counts as the east side, which would even include hoods like the infamous O Block and their main rivals STL EBT and Jarrow City. And on the other side of the Washington Park, also hoods like Tay Savage's Welch World. Yet these hoods are typically not discussed as being part of the east side, but rather simply being part of the south side, as in the case of O Block, STL, and Jarrow, or more specifically in the case of Welch World, part of the so-called low end, another area that's a deep part of Chicago folklore, which roughly covers the area on the south side from the state to the lake north of Washington Park. In the drill culture specifically, the east side has become particularly known for hoods that exist roughly south of 67th Street, with this street and the two huge green spaces, the Jackson Park and Oakwood Cemetery, that border the street, creating a natural boundary in the north. However, there are also sets on the north side of the 67th Street that claim the east side, such as TYMB and Dro City, which both rep the 65th Street. While the line of where the east side ends when going westwards from Lake Michigan is much more ambiguous, with the State Street and the I-94 next to it generally acting as a sort of last cutoff point, in the drill scene, this east side is known particularly for gangs like G Herbo and Lil Bibby's crew NLMB, which is made up of two clicked-up gang sets, No Limit and the Muskegon Boys, with these initials creating the NLMB moniker, which has also been used to stand for Never Leave My Brothers. However, NLMB's hood is located in the South Shore neighborhood, which is located very close to the shores of Lake Michigan, and is infamously known by the locals as Terror Town, a place with a long history for being particularly dangerous. Whereas when it came to Lil Jeff, his family seemed to mostly stay in a much more central area around the Grand Crossing and Chatham community areas, which generally have been much lesser discussed in the drill scene before Lil Jeff's recent blow-up, although the area has seen its fair share of rappers since the early 2010s repping these specific hoods. Now, Lil Jeff's family has long ties to the streets in the area. His father, Jeffrey Harris Sr., allegedly belonged to a street set called 068 C Block, C standing for Champlin Avenue, with their main spot seemingly being on 68th Street and Champlin. To put this location in context, this street corner is only about 0.3 miles from the location where Lil Jeff would eventually lose his life. And while there's not much available about this particular set online, Jeff's father was born in the early 80s, and thus he and his set were likely at their most active around the turn of the millennium and throughout the 2000s. What we do know with some certainty is that Jeff's family were closely connected with the very people that Jeff would later go to war with, including the person alleged by many to have been the one to gun him down, although there's no real evidence at the moment to prove who was the actual triggerman. But what can be said with more certainty is that close to the hood of Jeff's father, there would be another large hood that would end up playing a very large role in the street beefs that Jeff would get involved in. This hood was well known in Chicago even back in the 90s and 2000s when Jeff's dad was more active in the streets, and its history likely even goes much further back than that. Their hood was called the Lon City. For example, in the classic 1996 song by Chicago rapper D.A. Smart titled Walk With Me, he lists several Chicago hoods all around the area, with one of the bars referencing Lakeside, Paxtown, and Lon City, as Smart mentions how both Black Disciples and Gangster Disciples run the two latter hoods. But while Lakeside and Paxtown have more or less stayed intact until this day, at least in name, Lon City would eventually break apart, therefore it's not included in the modern gang maps. However, during the late 90s, in the trial against Larry Hoover, the infamous founder and leader of the Gangster Disciples, or GDs, one of the former members of Hoover's GDs, who turned informant, would give a very detailed description about the Lon City's territory at the time, this territory allegedly covering everything from 78th Street to 83rd Street, and all the way from State Street to Stony Island Avenue. This territory being absolutely enormous by modern Chicago gang standards, however their main spots were seemingly on the 79th Street, such as 79th and Evans, which is just a stone's throw away from the 79th in Maryland that Jeff would later begin to claim. One of the highest ranking GDs of the 90s, called Shorty G, real name Gregory Shell, would even allegedly live in Lon City. Shorty G would also have a prodigy in Lon City called Lil Frank, real name Frank Smith, who would later rise to the top of the leadership of the original GDs before he was given a life sentence in 2023 for allegedly organizing a killing of another high-ranking GD member as part of a leadership dispute. Due to its large size, Lon City had likely always had smaller sets working within it, both GD and BD, although the area has seemingly been majority GD. However, coming into the 2010s, Lon City, like most Chicago hoods, had lost the majority of its original structure due to the collapse of the traditional gang hierarchies during the 2000s, which led to the large gangs like the BDs and GDs to break into small neighborhood sets without any central leadership between them. In Lon City, these separate sets were also becoming more independent, particularly 6 sets that were known as A-Tray Mob, Evans Mob, Hit Squad, Mix Mob, Wiz City, and Drill City, the latter of which would eventually become Lil Jeff's set. According to Chiracologists, these individual sets would eventually break Lon City apart completely due to some of the BD sets backdooring the original GD leaders of Lon City. In the aftermath of this breakup, what's now known as Mix Mob would seemingly keep repping Lon City even after the breakup. Meanwhile, Drill City would seemingly get its name around the same time as the Chicago drill movement was starting. Chicago drill music being the ultra-violent evolution of gangster rap, with beats inspired by Atlanta trap and gritty lyrics all about real crimes that were actually happening in Chicago. With this set having some of the first pioneering drill artists, such as the rapper known as Fat Smack, who is in fact the actual cousin of the rapper Pac-Man, who hailed from the nearby Dro City hood and is generally considered to have been the original creator of the drill genre before Chief Keef made it famous.
The devil might be real or a magic mystery, but I make you disappear. Poof, history. I know you sick of me, but Mac is the antidote. So if you act fruity, I have to split your cantaloupe.
Hey man, you know this Pac-Man, Mr. Dro City. I'm not here, man. Hey, I tell him, the coupe looking like a Sunday, a chocolate Maserati, butter vanilla guts, valet pocketed at the party. Yo, on my heels, she was jocking me in the lobby. See the Maury Crocodile's pocket watching like she gon' rob me. I swipe for a room, penthouse, we at the W. The had your name on the neck, I know my stomach too.
Already in late 2010, Fat Smack would put out a mixtape titled A Day in Drill City, this being among the first drill projects ever to come out. Drill City is also known as BNC, or Bar None Crazy, which generally refers to them being an insane or renegade gang set. This means that they generally don't adhere to any central structure of a historical gang, like the BDs or GDs, and essentially are willing to go to war with, or kill people that descended from the same original gang as them. It seems that Drill City will first call with another set from the former Lon City called Wiz City, or Whisper City, named after a boy called Whisper, aka Wiz, who seemingly died in 2008 from medical complications. Similarly, as Drill City being bar none, Wiz City would be known as Brain Dead. This generally also meaning that they are insane or renegade BDs, who again don't abide by any centralized BD leadership and are willing to go to war with other BDs. In the very early 2010s, Wiz City was seemingly already beefing hard with several of the former Lon City sets, including Evans Mob, Mix Mob, and 8-Tray Mob.
Hey man, so I just want to talk about that Mix Mob thing, man. It's getting ridiculous, man. For real. That's some real shit, man. That shit getting ridiculous. First of all, let me say that right there. And there, y'all is here, man. You feel me? Y'all lucky I'm on this house for that shit. Because if I wasn't, what's going down, man? There's big drills on y'all, for real. Old 82nd movement, man. We ain't playing no games.
Boy, Drake, Wiz City crazy. Brain Dead, you already know 82nd crazy, boy. Got the South, A-Tray Mob.
Mix Mob!
Mix Mob. All them, boy. We out here Brain Dead, crazy, boy. GDK, that fat, boy. Let's get it. Fuck it.
Meanwhile, it appears that Drill City members were originally much more open to linking up with different sets, even ones that were already at war with Wiz City, such as Evans Mob and possibly even Mix Mob, which might be why someone on Reddit presenting them as having lived in the area during the late 2000s and early 2010s describes Drill City as playing sides. Meanwhile, another Redditor claims that Wiz City was getting close with the TYMB set, which is known from the early drill culture for getting shoutouts from the likes of Chief Keef. However, Drill City was beefing with TYMB, and there are even rumors that they killed one of their most loved members in 2012, a young man known in the streets as Obama. Real name Reginald Smith, the 24-year-old was shot and killed in a walk-up style attack on the 6500 block of South Drexel Avenue. The wildest rumors even claim that this killing led to one of the Drill City members getting kidnapped by TYMB before getting released for a 10k ransom. However, the consensus among Chiracologists seems to be that Obama was more likely killed by a member from another set that would become very close with Drill City. But more about that later. In any case, TYMB continues to be one of Drill City's longest ops, which is at least partly why even Lil Jeff would drop a Y sometimes in his music videos and on social media. At the time though, Wiz City's alliance with TYMB would allegedly cause Drill City to separate themselves from them and ally fully with their biggest ops, the Mix Mob instead. This alliance eventually going under the moniker DCMM, or Drill City Mix Mob, as represented by Fat Smack and another Drill City member called Leaky in their 2013 song by the same name. And they would also openly claim to be Wiz City K and vice versa, with Wiz City members vowing to K or kill kill anyone from Mix Mob or Drill City. The war between all these former Lon City sets would only keep escalating in the years to come, and alliances would keep changing over time. But moving forward, Drill City would seemingly also keep certain enemies that stayed the same, such as the majority GD sets, H-Ray Mob, Evans Mob, and Hit Squad, who have seemingly always stayed relatively united with each other, and against Drill City or BNC, as well as the Brain Dead BD set with City and another nearby Brain Dead BD set called MTV 079 or Money Through Vernon.
I heard before, like, you know, all this, like, all the violence started. I heard, like, y'all was everybody, every hood was all in one. Like, y'all used to go by Lon City or the Lon. Is that true or not?
Yeah, Lon City is like the whole area.
Like from Chatham to Applebaum
We
Park.
is Chatham. We is Chatham.
But y'all was a part of y'all hood was a part of Lon City, right?
Yeah,
Lon City movement.
Drill City and all that shit.
You know, them though, the other side though now.
I ain't gonna lie.
I ain't saying how it, like, you know, how it happened, but I'll say what year would y'all say all this broke apart?
I ain't gonna lie, folks. 2009,
2009, 2010.
2010, bro. That's when really everybody, like, all the on the other side, they started turning video type of shit.
You know what this is?
A bunch of weird. We was the only GDs. I ain't gonna lie, we was the only GDs. We clicked up with nobody, nothing.
You talking about like for X-Ray and Evans Mob?
They
be saying the shorties BDs too.
Yeah, we got some BDs. For them phones, like,
I ain't gonna lie, this shit clickbait, boy.
yeah, like, we EBK, we ain't just no everybody ain't GD. Brother BD, we family. He ain't straight
We
family. We a
I was
family.
gonna say,
About
since
no
you
gang.
Out of these three majority GD sets, Evans Mob is perhaps best known through their early 2010s connection with the infamous Washington Park-based set 600, due to two of their members, 600 Breezy and S-Dot, having a childhood and family connection to this set. Evans Mob is also known for a now classic moment in drill history when two of their members would catch infamous drill rapper Lil Reese from Lamron, aka the Grim Reaper, with this video causing the so-called Lil Reese Poopgate, as people would claim that the video showed visible skid marks on Lil Reese's underwear. A stinky conspiracy in Chicago drill that's been debated for years, and one which fans would eventually go all in on, analysing the patterns of the specific boxers that the Grim Reaper had been wearing that day to eventually debunk the theory and prove that it was all a big poopception all along, as the alleged brown stain actually turned out to just be part of the design of that particular set of boxers. But anyway, H-Ray Mob are a lesser known set to the average drill listener, although they too would have some rappers attempting to come up in the original drill wave, with artists like Don Darius and Murder Mal dropping some early songs that would gather some decent views, such as their 2013 music video for a remix of Lil Durk's song Competition, where one H-Ray member can be seen proudly presenting his shirt which says MTVK, BNCK, and Wiz City K. Hit Squad, on the other hand, is perhaps the smallest set out of these three, getting its name after a man called Hits, real name Marlon Dubose, who was killed in 2010, being shot in the head and neck. These are already many sets to keep track of, but ultimately, these were just the sets from the original Lon City hood. Whilst the story of Lil Jeff also includes numerous sets from nearby the original Lon City, because during the early drill era, while Lil Jeff was still just a young boy with dreams of pro basketball, his big brother Jay Boogie would jump headfirst into the streets, becoming friends with the very people that Jeff would later want to kill so bad that it ended up costing him his own life.